Welcome to Podcast and Business. I am Juan Carlos Giraldo from Boston, United States. Helle Bank Jorgensen is an internationally recognized expert on sustainable business practices with a vast experience in environmental, social, and governance, ESG. She works with many global Fortune 500 board members, executives, and smaller companies and investors. She wrote the book Stewards of the Future, a guide for competent boards. In this episode, we discuss with Helle some of the challenges and opportunities that board directors face related to ESG. Hello, Helle, how are you? I'm so happy to have you today as a guest in my podcast.
I am so happy to be here. Thank you so much.
In this episode, we will discuss boards and its relationship with ESG, and of course, discuss a little bit about your book, Stewards of the Future, a guide for competent boards. To get into a context, I would like to start this conversation by asking you, what are the most challenging issues that board directors face related to ESG, in your opinion?
Well, you're saying in my opinion, and first and foremost, thank you for having me here. But we're currently conducting a future boardroom survey, and the findings so far are quite insightful. We see that board members are really attempting to weave ESG, environment, social governance, into their decision making, but by doing that are perhaps being confronted by a real knowledge gap. So there is this pressing need for better ESG insight to provide the necessary direction. As I always say, it's hard to make informed decisions if you're not informed. So that's clearly one gap. Is like, how do we ensure that we as directors, boardrooms, actually know the questions to ask, but also what good looks like. Another hurdle that we are finding in the survey is the CEO's lack of prioritization of ESG issues. And I think that signals a need for stronger leadership commitment and a strategic direction from the top, moving through all the different levels of the organization. If you think about it, the board of directors, that's the most powerful in my mind that we have. They not only hire and fire the CEO, but they are also there to guide. And I think it's important that we start having that not only curiosity of knowing all of these different aspects, but also the courage and, of course, the competences to guide the C-suite, to guide the company. Mervyn King, who is one of our faculty members, he is saying that a business has no heart, a business has no conscience, a business has no mind, a business cannot do anything wrong. It's the leaders, it's us. So, and I don't think that people by definition say, I want to go out and do something wrong. But if we don't know what right is, So we need to ensure that we have that knowledge, and we need to ensure that the board of directors are guiding, helping the management team, the CEO, to be the best we can. And then I think perhaps we're also observing this challenge of gaining shareholder buy-in. That's not happening everywhere, but it happens at different places. And I think that's a reminder that everyone needs to be on the same page for this transition towards sustainable business practices to actually succeed. If you look at it, shareholders, well, you can call it shareholders, finance providers, they are the key players, and they act. We really need to have the involvement embedded. So that's another. There are many more challenges, but maybe I should stop here.
No, that's great. Actually, I read some papers, articles, books like your books, and all of them conclude that we are living in very ambiguous and complex world. As you mentioned, more CEOs, board members, leaders must move beyond just focus only on shareholders. We are living in an ESG era where the stakeholders matters, and the board members need to develop, some kind of ESG skills. My second question is, how important is that the board members have the right ESG skills? What are your thoughts?
Well, I mean, I love the fact that you say the right skills, and that's the good thing. What is the right skills? I mean, I think the right skills is not just environment, social governance as kind of like siloed. This is also geopolitical issues. This is also human rights issues. This is also responsible use of data, ethical AI. This is also about cyber, etc. And I think the data that we are seeing speaks volume about the evolving skill set that's required for board members. We see this marked shift from the traditional competences like financial, administrative, acumen. I'm a business lawyer. I'm an accountant myself, so we still need us, but we also need skills that's more tuned to the evolving business landscape, ESG, sustainability expertise, digital technology, savvy. Think about we're having a session about quantum technologies, what that is going to mean for us. We need, and I'm going back to my curiosity, we need to have those directors, and we need to also see the ability to adapt and collaborate. And these are emerging as the, I guess, preferred skills for the future boardrooms. In that, I think you have emotional intelligence, adaptability,
Empathy.
Yeah, exactly. Strategic thinking, right? But also critical thinking. And I think that is going to be more and more important, especially when we now start talking about artificial intelligence, right? Oh, I can just have GPT chat, to come up with the questions I should ask. Oh yeah, well then we can all meet around the boardroom table with exactly the same questions. And if none of us are putting in any critical thinking, why are we there in the first place? So we are chosen as board directors. We have the responsibility to ask questions, and I would say use all the tools we can, but we cannot leave our brain, at home. That is why we're there. So I also think, and perhaps important, that we also need to foster a kind of collaboration and inclusivity, because we've had this, that what are the boardroom, and how do we ensure that we actually get to a decision. And I think that's important, that we have that understanding of that we as the boardroom, we're there for the corporation, and we're there to use all the tools we can, but also to actually bring that corporation, both today and in the future, to be a successful corporation, a thriving corporation. So yeah, I mean, there's a lot of traditional competences that, as I said, we still need, but there's a lot of new competences that we really need to see.
Exactly. And also, I mean, the boards, in my opinion, need to listen more about other fields, other professionals, diversity, not only diversity about race, about gender, diversity as well as a professional, and other kind of fields. So from other fields. For example, if we discuss, let's see, biodiversity or water, we have to reach the water managers, the biologists, etc. Modern slavery and business, we can reach people like Andrew Wallis, who was my guest, by the way, and supply chain, etc. What do you think of involve this kind of expertise on critical issues within the boards?
I will say Andrew Wallis is also part of the Competent Boards faculty, and is such joy, and is so good at communicating why we need competent boards, why we need to have board of directors to ask the questions and open their eyes, but also, as you're saying, open the ears and actually listening. And I see personally, I see immense value in evolving, call it experts on critical issues within the board discussions. I think we need to recognize that the definition of a stakeholder has broadened, since I came into this world, but it's also essential that we tap into the diverse perspectives and expertise that all of these different stakeholders bring to the table. Environment is now a stakeholder. Nature is now have rights as persons, different places, right? So you have much more than that. And us as directors, we need to not, in my mind, be an expert for this and an expert for this, but listen to and bring in, expertise. So I think, you can also say employees, customers, communities, all of them matters. And the surveys that we do shows that, of course, many agrees on that, but also that many of those responding to our surveys believe that boards should actively engage with this wider stakeholder group, and that doing so, they can benefit both the transparency, the accountability, but also the overall social and environmental impact. And well, I guess you think about it in this way: who better to advise on water issues, as you were putting out, than the water manager, or biodiversity than the scientists in that field? If we're dealing with these topics, it's logical, in my mind, to seek advice from the experts who understand these areas, in a much more intimate way than others. But future generations, and as I said, even nature itself, are becoming stakeholders. And they're not necessarily in the room, but their interests are represented, hopefully, by the wise directors. And that representation is essential to the long-term legitimacy, but also the survival of the businesses. So I see this change in attitude, especially among the younger generations. They're not just about personal gain. They care deeply about others. They care deeply about the environment. And it's that mindset that I think we all need to strive to reflect in our policies and our decision making. We are human beings. Let's think and act like that. So I think, inviting these diverse expertise into the boardroom can be the strategic way to meet the expectations of the broadened stakeholder group and handle this complexity of ESG sustainability. And the world of businesses is changing so rapidly. And I think we need to adapt our approaches and our boardrooms to reflect this new reality. But I do not believe that we should have, 100 people, all experts, sitting around this boardroom table, because then we'll never get to anything. We need to have some generalist directors that, of course, have their expertise, but are curious, are competent, and are courageous enough to go out and have that conscious of not only themselves and the corporation, but also the corporation in the future and the impact of that corporation.
Oh, certainly. Something I really like that you mentioned engage, because, for example, right now we are living in water scarcity, and, for example, water is critical for everything as a natural capital. I would like to know your thoughts about a report from the New York University that is about the U.S. board suffer or is lack of expertise on ESG matters. It shows an interesting fact. The report is from 2021 that only 29%, which is low, of 1,200 directors had relevant ESG credentials. What are your thoughts?
We started competent boards back in 2018 and launched in 2019. And at that point, it was that people were saying, why should board of directors care about these different issues? Now it's totally different. We have all the regulations coming up. We have that board of directors is held accountable, not just by the stakeholders, but also in regulatory, etc. And I think the study you refer to is the one from Tansy Whelan. Yes.
For Tansy Whelan.
And another fantastic, also
She's
part
great.
of the faculty. And it shows this crucial issues that many directors lack the necessary expertise to effectively address ESG matters. And I have to say, yes, it's clearly aligns to what I've observed too. There's another survey out there. Well, there's more surveys. We actually also doing one at the moment, but there's a survey from last year that showed, so 2022, that showed the competences of directors of the 100 largest corporations in the world, and those directors serving on committees tasked to oversee ESG, sustainability, climate change, all of these different matters, and showed that only 5% of those directors serving there actually had any form of education. There is a larger extent that says, I self-identify as, but that's good, but to me, it's kind of like if we look at the audit committee, being an accountant, and if we have an audit committee that are signing off on the financials and no one really fully understand the financials, I would be a little bit scared, right? And what I think we are seeing at the moment is that this tsunami of regulations that's coming over us, and so I can see in terms of all of those board of directors and business leaders and investors and future board of directors that are joining the competent boards certificate and designation programs, that there is such a need. Well, I mean, but not only a need, there's also a desire to get this insight, because it's good for the director, it's good for the business, it's good for the stakeholders, right? So, but like everything else, if we don't know about it, well, it's kind of like we are acting, we're stumbling over things. While if we have that foresight, then we can, frankly, also make money, right? We can reduce the risk, we can reduce our reputational risk, but we can also gain. And I think that's the positive side that from time to time, people are not very afraid of kind of like the compliance. But I see all of those that are going through our programs, suddenly being value creators, right? They create values, they create both financial, reputational, new products, new innovations, get new board seats, so there's just that positive way of looking at it as well that I think we really need to tap into, because there's no doubt there are challenges out there, and we are unfortunately in a world where the 100-year crisis seems to all of them happened this year, and I'm afraid
And also
exactly.
COVID also affects many
I
things,
think we're on the right path, and I think I told you that we now have educated people around in over 50 countries that have been through the certificate and the global certificate and designation programs.
I totally agree. And also, if the boards get this kind of, let's see, skills or improve the skills, they will lead with example. So
exactly, and that's also
so
the other thing that I'm seeing, because, as I said, we now have these directors in so many countries, and they go out to their boardrooms, and then suddenly their peers in those boardrooms saying, "Whoa, you suddenly are much more, all of these things," and they have this confidence. They can go out to talk to other stakeholders, to shareholders about this, and really start to create value for the business. So it is this exponential growth in knowledge. I mean, clearly, I'm happy to see that, because that's good for the director, it's good for the business, it's good for all of us. Yeah.
For the society, for everyone, Well, speaking about knowledge, let's talk about your book, which I read and I learned a lot. I like the style of the book. It's very easy to read, involve topics like climate change, ESG, diversity, human rights, anti-corruption, etc. And I like the way that you present the book. After the chapter, we have some kind of exercise, 10 key questions, etc., which is very useful. And I mentioned before, I met Andrew Wallis through your book, and he was a fantastic guest. The question is how you decide or publish this book, because you have plenty of years of experience
I've been
in this field.
for over 30 years. writing the
Stewards of
book
the
was
future.
something that I've been asked for many years to write a book, and I was like, okay, I really believe that we need this inside out to all boardrooms, and I'm grateful for all your kind words. It's written so that perhaps those that can't go through our competent boards global programs, they at least have that book, have that insight, and um, I'm happy to see the impact it's have on a lot of people, and people saying this really helped me. This made me understand these things. This gave me that insight, right? And as you say, there are questions in the book, so at least you kind of like have the questions you can go out and ask management and your fellow board members and others to say, hey, are we really on the right track? So the other,
Exactly.
so kind of like this reach as many people as possible. I think that was one, and the other thing is this. You need to understand the ABC of ESG, climate, geopolitical issues, and in order to actually act upon it. We can't just do lip service to this. We actually need to know. It is the role of the director. It's our duty of care to actually start knowing. So I'm hoping that the book gives many more the opportunity to learn from all of the leaders that I have had a chance to work with, and now as part of the competent boards. So that's part of it. And then I don't know if I dare say this, but I'm starting a new book called
Oh, that's
well,
good.
we'll see.
Congrats.
It's called The Future Boardroom, and the future boardroom of choice instead of by chance, because I think we need to look at the future boardroom and what will that look like. So think about, you have all of these geopolitical issues that we now also have part of the program. We have artificial intelligence and ethical AI that's also part of the program. We have all of these different aspects, and I think it's important that we, both as human beings, but also as directors, not only talk about what's the purpose of the companies we serve, but also what's the purpose of us as directors. What is it when I walk out of that boardroom? What should I have done in that boardroom, right? Is it just to keep the company afloat, or is it actually to move that company along in a very challenging world?
Actually, one of the word that I have for this book, for your book, is practical. And I just reading right now the back, and Paul Polman said the same. Practical, insightful. Hela, can you explain what is competent boards? I saw your webpage is fantastic. Please explain where people can find you. What is competent boards? What is the main goal of your institution?
Well, the main goal is to provide that insight, provide that foresight, so that directors and business leaders and investors and others can provide the oversight. And on all of these newer areas that we have not really learned about. So we are the first that started all of this. So and it's a global. So it's set over 50 countries now. It's online, so that you will be in an online classroom together with people from all over the world, which also means that you get that insight from not only the faculty that we're inviting, but from people from all over the world. We also have self-guided programs, so you don't need to, but it's a way to get that insight. We focus on, as I said, environment, social governance, climate, biodiversity, but in that also geopolitical issues. There is cybersecurity. There is ethical AI, etc. And I think the faculty members, and now you both mentioned Paul Pullman, who is also part of faculty and supporting from the start, Andrew Wallace, but we have over 180 of board directors, experts, leaders that are delivering the programs. And I think that's part of it, is like peer-to-peer learning. It's very practical in the same way as you say in terms of the book. It's very, this is how we're doing it, and people can go back, and I know people are going back after each of the sessions and applying it. And when I say after each of the sessions, it's 90 minutes every second week. So I was going to say everyone can get that into to their normal schedule, and again, get from all over the world. And yes, people can visit competentboards.com from more information, and of course there's newsletters that people can subscribe to as well. And
Helle, is there anything that you would like to add to this conversation for our audience?
Well, maybe now we started thinking. So the next global competent boards certificate designation programs actually starts here in September. Both a cohort for board members and a cohort for business leaders, etc. And as I said, it covers geopolitical issues, ESG, climate, biodiversity, human rights, incentives, regulations, cybersecurity, ethical AI, and much more. All that a modern board director need to know. And I think perhaps also just for those who are in the APEC region, we actually now starting programs that's also for that time zone. So morning in Hong Kong and Japan, and but also have the programs for Europe, US, Latin America, Africa.
That's great.
As I always say, we have all continents apart from Antarctica, and I think that might be a good thing.
That's great. Helle, where people can contact you?
Well, yeah, thank you. Yes, LinkedIn. They can definitely on LinkedIn. I think if they put in Helle Bank, HelleBank, yeah, and then the Jorgensen, you have to be careful because there's this slash on the O, yeah. So, but I think I'm the only one that's Helle Bank. So,
I think they won't have any problem to find you. Helle, I would like to say thank you for your time.
Well, thank you for your time, and thank you for doing this.
No, thank you. I learned a lot from your book. I highly recommend this book, Stewards of the Future, a guide for competent boards. I am Juan Carlos Giraldo from Boston, United States. Thank you so much, everyone.